Hello guys, how are we doing and welcome back to the channel. Hopefully by the end of today's video, Control on Black Ops 6 Ranked play goes from being your worst game mode to your best. I think it usually is regarded as the least favourite game mode because S&D and Hardpoint are both fully integrated into public matches way more consistently and often than Control is. But as I say, today's video I'm hoping to go through a bunch of tips, starting at something that's really simple and going into a little bit more complex tips as we go through the video to hopefully make you prefer Control more than you already do, at least. So we're gonna, before we get into it, the gameplay in the background is a Control gameplay. It's Control and Protocol. I think it's a pretty solid game. I'm not going to spoil the outcome of it, but it's a real good use. If you replicate some of the things I do in this video and some of the things I say in this video, you're going to have better chances of succeeding when you jump into Control next time you play Black Ops 6 Ranked play. So we're going to start off with some general info for those of you who are super beginners in Ranked play. And it's got rules and how the rounds are defined and things like that. So there are two objectives, A and B. Each team has 30 lives, and offense team have to capture A and B before the time runs out. And defense team has to basically make sure that they last long enough and defend A and B, and then let the time run out when they haven't captured A and B. Okay, that's pretty much how it works. Now, either team can win by killing 30 members of the other team before they do the same to you. So if you're on offense, you can either win by capturing both A and B before the time limit runs out, or you can kill 30 enemies before they kill 30 of your teammates, essentially, because then they'd win the round, obviously. There are three, what I'm going to call ticks. There are three segments to each point. So in total, with A and B and 3 in each, there's 6 segments. We're going to be calling them ticks. So A has 3 ticks, B has 3 ticks. It takes 20 seconds per tick per player. So for example, if I was to sit on an objective, say A, by myself, it'd take me 20 seconds per tip, which is a total of 60 seconds to capture the entire objective, which is why Control games tend to last quite a long time. And sitting on an objective does stop the timer. If an offense team has sat on the objective, it stops the timer. It stops the clock. I mean, again, I get into a little bit more information on how you can stop the clock effectively later on in today's video. Each additional player the offense team has on the objective, it speeds it up by 5 seconds. So if all 4 players of the offense team are capturing an objective, it makes it a 5 second per tick capture rate, 15 seconds for a total objective. Okay, so that really hopefully emphasizes how important it can be to full stack a point, because it goes from being a minute to capture with 1 player being on it to 15 seconds to capture with 4 people being on it for the entirety of that point. We're now going to be looking at a little bit of map control here, okay? So spawn map control is going to be our focus. If you want individual spawn guides for the control maps, this isn't the place for it. I'm going to be going into the logic and general assumptions you can use to hopefully give you a little bit of a boost. But if you want really specifics on how spawns work within control, you can find those videos recently posted in the channel. I've done one from each of the control maps so far, bar Hacienda, I believe, which is going to be coming very soon. So Control is a bit different to Hardpoint because the spawns don't flip, okay? The spawns in Control are relatively rigid to one side of the map, okay? If you push that spawn, they'll just spawn somewhere slightly different on that same side of the map. The only reason the enemy team would spawn not where you expect is if all members of your team are pushed way too forward, all the way into the depths of their spawn, and the game has to go, okay, there's nowhere to spawn them here, let's just spawn them slightly out, but they'll never fully flip, okay? It's not like Hardpoint where you literally flip spawns, you will just spawn slightly out than you would have before. Pushing one side, so say for example there's A and B usually on other sides of the map. If you push through one objective and you push to one side of the enemy spawn, generally the enemies will spawn the other side of their side. So say for example we've got this example here, there's this spawn point where the blue spawn point where the blue team is spawning, okay? That's there because there's not enough aggression. The blue team are spawning there because there's not enough aggression from the red team to spawn them otherwise. But what you can see is as soon as the red player starts to push forward, the blue team then start to spawn further out. And that works with any sort of hard control map mode combo. If you push left, they'll spawn deep right. If you push right, they'll spawn back left. And if you have someone push left and right, they'll spawn back middle. And then that's the problem is when you then push mid, left, right, they then spawn slightly out. But that's generally the logic behind the spawns of Control. You push left, they'll spawn right. You push right, they'll spawn left. That's pretty much how it happens. As I say, if you want specifics on exact points in which they spawn, you can find the Control spawn guides in my recent uploads. Now, what this means is you can actually use this spawn system to make them spawn further away from the objective. So if we take the example here before, if the red team simply sat on the objective here, the blue team are spawning quite close to what they're trying to capture. The green zone is the capture point in this example. So the red team are, they're waiting for the kills to come to them. They're sat on the objective, and it means the blue team are spawning quite close, so that any kill the red team get, the blue team are only spawning a 5-second sprint away. So it's not really, it makes the kills less impactful, and it means that you're then going to be spawning further out as a red team than they will be when the kills are matched, which means the blue team's kills hold more weight. Now, what happens when, as we said before, the one member of the red team pushes slightly through the objective? Okay, this works in all map mode combos. As I say, specifics can be found in other videos, but for protocol on this point, if someone from the red team pushes through P2 towards like the radio tower or the castle, whatever you want to call it, it then defers the blue team spawn further out, which is perfect if you want to capture that objective, because it means that it's going to take them even longer to get to that point. It also means that any kill you get is more important, because they're now spawning 10 seconds away. And you will also spawn 10 seconds away. So any kills you get with this setup means that essentially you've then got equal opportunity to get to the objective rather than before when they were spawning close. So you really need to use your spawns like that to get the best chance of winning. Another thing with map control is taking gunfights on the point is never a good idea. Okay, so when you're defending on control, the worst habit I see often is people sit on B with, let's take this example on control on Vault, for example. The blue team are on defense and the red team are on offense in this example. The blue team get to the point they're trying to defend and stay there. They wait for the red team to come and attack them. The kills then go in the way of the red team, maybe, and it essentially means that the red team, by the time the blue team has spawned in, the red team have already made it to the objective. So that now it's a fight from the blue team to get the objective. The red team are on the objective, capturing it, and the blue team have just spawned in. Now they're having to fight for it. Okay, so that's not really what you want to be doing. Instead of sitting on the objective and waiting for the enemies to come, what is better to have is the team pushed up here. So the blue team, you can see here, has pushed up the map ever so slightly, taking the gunfights to them. And what that means is after a few kills, the blue team have spawned out. The blue team has spawned back in their spawn. That's absolutely fine. But because they took the gunfights to them, essentially, and the gunfights have been taken past the point, when the blue team spawn in, the red team are almost, again, the same distance away from the current objective, which means you've got almost a second chance to take those gunfights on at the objective. Okay, the further into their spawn you can take these gunfights, the more chance and the more of like a forgiveness your deaths are going to have. Okay, obviously you don't want to just rinse through lives, but in reality you don't want to be sat on the point, because if you lose that gunfight, they're then on the point when you spawn in, and it's never a good situation. Then you've got to pretty much, they're going to have setup, then you're going to have to try and break them. When to stack. So there's, as I say, there's 20 seconds per tick with one player, and each additional player speeds it up by 5 seconds. So I think you only really need to stack if you have a clear 3 or 4 down opportunity. And when I say stack, I mean get 4 people on the objective at one time, making it a 15-second point capture for the full objective. Now, you only really need to stack when you have a clear 3 or 4 down opportunity and feel like the enemy can't get to the point in time. Okay, I see so many people who the point's open, but they haven't got the kills. They haven't got the map control yet. They just have the point open. 4 people sit in the objective. People from the defense team pop out of their little nooks and kill everyone, and then suddenly you're in the spawn trap. What you need to do is allocate people to be slayers around the map and let them to get the kills. When you get 3 or 4 enemies down, then you can set on the point. At most, you'll then have to deal with 1 person who comes out, at which point you can hopefully get a trade, meaning that you then have 3 people on the objective. And as we know, it's then going to take, 30 seconds for the whole capture point to be completed. And that makes it a lot more efficient and allows you to get way more ticks. Something I missed out from my first section here. Round 5 defense is done by what team has more ticks, which team has more segments completed. Okay, that's what determines defense on round 5, which is often the preferred side to have. You'd rather be defending the objectives than capturing them because it's a little bit harder. Now, a lot of teams struggle from being trapped in a spawn trap. Okay, so escaping the spawn trap is relatively simple to avoid once you know this next tip. Now, this often happens because your team push out the spawn one by one. They die, and then a few seconds later, someone else in your team dies, and a few seconds later, someone else dies. And then when they spawn in, obviously, there's a few seconds between each spawn, so that when they push out of the spawn, the enemies are only having to shoot 1 person at a time with a couple of seconds in between. Instead, what you should do is when you spawn in, sit in a safe spot and wait. wait for the rest of your team to spawn in with you. So then there's now 4 of you, 3 or 4 of you together. You may have one player who somehow got out. There's 3 or 4 of you together, and you then objectively push through one direction with your team. At most, there's going to be 1 or 2 people watching that player, that area from the enemy team, but pushing together allows you to get the trade and at least have one person escape out the spawn. That's going to be beneficial because then you can then spawn trap the players the other side, and then it sort of evens it up a little bit more. The worst thing you can do when you're being spawn trapped is to not wait for your team to spawn in with you and just push, just full force all the time. That you're just going to be walking into pre-aims. Now, what I see people often struggle when they're in the life deficit. Now, what I mean by that is, it's getting to the round. You're on offense, right? It's 5v13. You've got 5 lives. The enemy team has 13 lives. You're thinking, there's no way we're going to win this. There's a lot you can do, okay? The biggest thing I see is people rush too much. You see 5v13, you're like, right, the only chance we've got is the objective. Let's run at it. People don't often look at the time. Now, in a game that's so lopsided and you're somehow 5 to 13, oftentimes you've got 40, 30, 40, 50 seconds left of that time, okay? You've got a long time. You've got over half a minute to get to the hill and capture the point. Use that time, play for kills, okay? Guarantee a kill. If it's 5v13, if you're on that team who has 5, wait for the enemies to get a little bit pushy, okay? They're going to be a little bit not sure where you're going to be at. Play for the kills. Be really greedy, right? Play for those kills. Once you get 3 or 4 down, then you stack the point, okay? It's that point, you know, you've just got the kills. Even if you're sat still in a corner for 20 seconds waiting for a free kill, you get that free kill. Your other teammates have just got free kills as well. Then you jump on the objective, okay? That will guarantee you most 6 and guarantee you the most success, okay? The worst thing you can do when there's 5v13 is just run at the objective, because realistically, you're not going to have success, okay? They're going to kill you off it way too quickly, and you're just going to be sitting ducks essentially on the objective, especially on maps like Protocol and Vault. Now, when do you let the enemy capture the objective? Now, this is a bit of a weird one. Now, oftentimes when you are defending and you've unsuccessfully defended one of the capture points, whether it's A or B, oftentimes they stack the point, okay? You don't want to waste time running to that objective only to them capture it by the time you get there. Okay, you want to, what we want to call it is chalk it. Chalk it. That's what pros say. That's what we use. Okay, that's the terminology. Chalk the objective, and knowing when to chalk the objective is really, really important. You've got to assume that when you're running at this point, whether it's, I don't know, B on protocol, A on protocol, you've got to assume if they're capturing it, and you can see the ticks going up quickly, you can see their progress bar going up quickly. You're like, okay, there's way too many people on it. By the time I get there, they would have already captured it. There's no point wasting my energy trying to get them off that point, because by the time I get there, maybe if I get a kill or 2, they'd have traded me out, and you know what, they've already captured the point. Instead, if you assess the situation, you can see there's a lot of people on the objective, and you're defending. Say, but can I get there by the time they capture it? If you can't, set up for the other objective. Okay, now obviously if it's the only objective left to capture, you got to play for it. You don't want them to get the objective. You'd much rather lose on lives than ticks. If there's an alternative objective you can defend, instead of spending time running at that old point for them to just capture it anyway, as a team, work out a way to defend the new objective. Okay, play around the new objective that they're going to have to get the initial kills from when they're transferring from A to B, for example, and then set up a spawn trap. Okay, the worst thing you can do is, just as they're about to capture an objective, is die. You then spawn back in your spawn. The enemy teams then are running from A to B. They've pretty much got to B by the time you've just spawned in, and then you're having to fight them on that new objective. Chalk the original objective, set up for the new one, and you can go from there. The next thing is how to stop the clock. Now, as you guys know, sitting on an objective on offense stops the clock from running down, okay? And if you don't capture the objectives by the time the clock runs down, you lose the round, okay? So you really want to extend and have someone sat on the time so that the clock doesn't tick down, okay? Having one player doing this is a good idea, because it allows the rest of the team to slay and get kills, okay? If you win as I say, on offense, you can win the round by either killing 30 of the enemy teammates or getting the objective, okay? So you can have one player, it depends on your strength as a team, but you can have one player who's sat on the objective and have the other 3 teammates essentially watching the exits from the enemy spawn, essentially kill whoring, okay? And that, what will happen is you've making some progress, although it's slow, you're making some progress on the capture point, but you're draining the lives fast, which means that you've got a little bit more flexibility to be a little bit more rash. You can jump on the points, you can be traded easier, because you're going to have maybe double the lives as the enemy team. Let's take a setup like this on Protocol. You can have a One player, the player who's sat on the objective there, slowly capturing. Okay, it's going to take them a whole minute to capture that objective by themselves. Well, what that does, it means there's a minute the timer isn't ticking down, and it's a minute more. The red team can just get kills and kills and kills. Okay. Now, obviously, you're going to need to win the gunfights for this to be effective. You're not, if the blue team are simply a better team than the red team are going to lose the gunfights, and it's not going to mean anything anyway. You still need to win your gunfights as the red team. But what I'm saying is you can use the time of your teammate being sat on the clock to just run down the lives. Okay, that can be super effective. And then when you're at a point where there's time dwindling, then you can hop the objective. And using these sort of things in balance with just stacking the point, playing for a spawn trap, having more than one player on the objective, does have to be balanced out fairly well. And the only way you're going to know how to balance it out is just by playing the game, trying these things out, trying what works, trying what doesn't, and trying to find what suits you, maybe as a team or as a solo queuer. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Sorry, it's a little bit of a long drab. It's nearly 60 minutes now, but I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any other sort of constructive criticism about how people can play Control and things you've noticed people don't do very well, leave it down in the comments, because I'm sure there'll be people who may help, maybe helped from what you're suggesting. So that'll do for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.